Kurt, we are here at the end of the season. We have the light before we go into the play-in game, the play-in tournament, and playoffs. The best time in the year for basketball. Let's just jump right into the front runners for different awards. We have a lot of different selections to go through. So let's start with the MVP. Who are your front runners?
Look, Nikola Jokic is going to run away with this, right? He has played the most games. I mean, he's played 20 more games than Joel Embiid and more than everybody else. Plus, I mean, we keep talking about how much he's played. Guy's almost averaging a triple-double at center, right? Like, he has been phenomenal and efficient offensively. And you watch his passes. I mean, he throws passes not only just threading the needle, kind of pocket bounce passes. He could be QB1 on a bunch of teams, right? Like, he's launching light to the court passes. Everything he does has been great. He's running away with this, and then it gets tight.
Yeah, it's interesting because some people would say, what about Giannis? You know, could he go back-to-back? I mean, what do you think?
It seems like he took a little bit of a step back this year to me, just like half a step on defense. I think part of that was that the Bucks as a team were shifting their focus, weren't they? So, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think you can make look, Joel Embiid was the best player minute for minute in the NBA today, this year. I mean, Jokic played 20 more games. That's kind of where that comes through. And by the way, Stephen Curry's made a run lately and deserves to be in that conversation. He is another guy. I think Embiid, Antetokounmpo, and Curry finished 2, 3, 4 in some order. I'm not sure how voters are going to have them. Frankly, I'm not sure I'm going to have them on my ballot yet.
Yeah, Curry's my pick. I know Jokic is averaging almost a triple-double. I know he's been amazing, but what Curry has managed to do this season, I mean, I think this is one of his best seasons ever. 10 plus 30-point games. I mean, there was that strand. It was that straight little bit of time there was just unbelievable basketball, and he's been able to do it every night since the beginning of the season. To me, that spells MVP. But let's go on to Defensive Player of the Year. Who are you picking there? The two names that come to the top are, Gobert and Simmons. What do you think?
I think it's going to be Gobert. Just look, as much as I like Ben Simmons' game, Simmons has help. Simmons has Embiid. Simmons has Matisse Thybulle. That is a very good Philadelphia defense, but it's not built on Simmons. As versatile as he is, Utah, everything they do is built around Gobert. They chase guys off the three-point line because if they screw up, there's the French wall back there just knocking stuff, the Stifle Tower, if you will. He's back there just knocking stuff away.
That's nice.
Yeah, that was mine. That's been around for a while.
That's good. Oh, that's catchy. Yeah, he changes the entire flow of a game.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what a Defensive Player of the Year does.
Yeah.
Rookie of the Year. What do you pick?
LaMelo Ball. He's going to run away. Anthony Edwards has been fantastic the second half of the season. I don't think we can sleep on Tyrese Halliburton, who's been really good all year. I know he's been injured the last bit. Was fantastic. Nobody watched him because nobody should watch Sacramento Kings basketball this year. It was rough. But Tyrese Halliburton was fantastic. But still, this is LaMelo. LaMelo impacted winning, put up numbers on a very good team, like on a playoff-bound team or play-in at least bound team. He has impacted winning. That's really rare for a rookie.
Absolutely. You think about the other two rookies you mentioned, Halliburton and Edwards, they were kind of wasting away at the bottom of their respective cards. It's like, where was Minnesota? Where was Sacramento? It's just, oh, man. But they were putting up numbers. Yeah, big shout out to Tyrese Halliburton for being so consistent throughout the year. But I'm with you. It has to be LaMelo. Coach of the Year?
I don't know. To me, that's maybe the toughest thing on the board outside of when you get to the All-NBA teams. Monty Williams, Quinn Snyder, Tom Thibodeau probably finish 1, 2, 3. I'm leaning probably Monty Williams, but I'm not sure where I'm going to go. And after that, I mean, we're not even talking about guys who you can make a really good case for Nate McMillan in Atlanta, the way he's turned. Like, there's a whole lot of guys who deserve consideration, but I think that's going to be your top 3.
We should have like a play-in tournament for the coaching. Figure out the playoffs for the coach of the year. Yeah, there's a lot of great coaches this year, but I mean, Quinn Snyder, what he's been able to do with Utah in that gauntlet of the Western Conference. I know Phoenix rose late, but Utah, I mean, 20 games in, they claim number 1, and they have been hesitant and reluctant to let it go. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's built that system over time. It's really been impressive.
Sixth man of the year?
Probably Jordan Clarkson. He sloughed off a little. He had a little bit of a shooting slump the second half of the season. The guy who could take it from him, Joe Ingles on his own team. Joe Ingles is not quite the same shot creation and raw numbers, But Joe Ingles is about to have one of the best pure shooting seasons ever off the bench. He's just ridiculous.
Yeah, Jordan Clarkson to me is almost like a sixth starter.
Yeah.
You know, he comes in and he acts like a starter. He plays like a starter. But yeah, his numbers have been unbelievable this season. To me, he kind of gets the edge over Ingles. But Ingles also, that's a very interesting pick. Most improved?
Julius Randle. I don't. We can make some cases. Like Michael Porter Jr. can be on the list. And there's other guys you can put on there, but that's the Julius Randle Award, and it should be. He's made such a leap this year, going from a 29% career 3-point shooter to over 40% this year, and the hub of everything the Knicks do on offense. It's amazing.
And let's move on to some other awards. The All-NBA awards, very coveted, very difficult. I know you've been racking your brains. How do you figure out to celebrate these athletes in 3 different teams? It's very difficult. Let's go with the first team. Who is your picks for first team All-NBA?
First time All-NBA, and I'm just going to say this up front. This may shift before I actually pass in the actual book. Probably not first team, but by the time we get to third team, there'll be probably some shifts. It's going to start with, I think the guards are kind of locked in. I think Steph Curry's got to be one, right? I think Steph Curry has to be one. I think at center, if you're going to make Nikola Jokic your MVP, he is your first team All-NBA center. I have Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kawhi Leonard as my forwards, and Leonard is the one guy who could go. And then I have Luka Doncic as my other guard. So it's essentially Doncic, Curry, Antetokounmpo, and Leonard, and Jokic.
Yeah. And you said that Leonard could go. You're thinking maybe he's the debating.
He comes back to, and this is kind of how I view All NBA, and this is where I'm not everybody's going to agree with me. I think of this as an award for posterity. You're talking ideally about the 15 best players, and that top 5 should probably be your top 5 for MVP. So. If I have Joel Embiid in there, I could theoretically slip him in. And that's part of what they've allowed with the NBA, right? You can be Joel Embiid's available, and Jokic are available at forward, even though I don't think they've played 15 minutes at forward all season.
I feel like Jokic would be forward and Joel Embiid would probably be center, right?
That'd be a really good team. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know that I can bring myself to do that. I'm going to probably slide Joel Embiid to the second team, but that's part of the challenge of this, really, and it's something worth discussing. They really do make with the NBA. They're going to keep the positions. They want the traditional 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center, but how they've dealt with a modern NBA where players don't fit into that very well is just to provide multiple options. So if you can name a guy, a wing player, what you and I would call a wing player, they're available at guard or forward. So the one thing I could do on this first team, if I were going to make a change, I could move Lillard, who I think is very deserving, up to the first team at guard, move Doncic to forward, bump Kawhi down. But when I start to do that, then I start to mess with, you've got to move a forward off the list down the line. So it becomes really challenging to do it. I think that's my first 5, though, and probably the first 5 I'm going to go with.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I like the way you said it's for posterity. Some people say, okay, well, who are the best players in the NBA this year versus who are the best NBA players of potentially, the past 5 years or this decade? Do you have honorary? I noticed LeBron isn't in that category either. Is there some people who almost get lifetime achievement awards? What's your take on that?
Yeah, to a degree, I'm going to give some guys some deference. It still has to be a good year, and so LeBron James is on my second team. He's had a fantastic year. He just missed enough time that I'm going to put other guys in front of him. But I think the case this year, the question guy this year is, if you're going to do the posterity argument, is Kevin Durant, who was is still one of the best players in the game, and B, when he played this year, was MVP level. If he had stayed healthy and played 60 games, give or take, we'd be having a conversation with him back in the MVP talk, right?
Yeah, he was unstoppable. Every time he stepped on the floor, it was just game over. And mind you, he was playing with 2 of the other best players in the NBA, with James Harden and Kyrie Irving, and he still looked on a different level. And I have no idea how he managed to do that. And that's kind of the argument of, if he only played 30 games, does that matter when you step on the floor and it's almost night and day difference between elite players?
Yeah, he is. It is unbelievable how good he was. I ultimately don't have him on an All-NBA team because it becomes about playing. He didn't even play half the NBA games this year. And I guess that's where I was going to draw the line, was at some point you've got to say did he play enough this year to warrant inclusion on this team? I'm just going to say no, even though if you put him on a team, I'm sure there will be other voters who put them on team. I can't even argue it. He was that good this year.
Yeah, it depends too. Like in a COVID-shortened season, like the very short off season, you knew you were going to have resting players, and then you had the play-in kind of needle too, where if you're okay on 6, 7, you got to start playing your guys more often than not. You see Luka playing like every night, 62 games, versus a guy like Kawhi who can be rested. The luxury of being a little more careful with your stars. How does that play into picking people?
I think this year, and most years, I'm probably, especially with some of the awards, I'm probably more cautious with, hey, did they play enough? Did they reach, it's hard in most years, I would say if you didn't play 70 games, I can't consider, in an 82 game season. I don't know if I really, how serious, it becomes much harder to be an MVP to me. But this year, I think that's all out the window. The compressed schedule, the soft tissue injuries that everybody, I have Kawhi Leonard on first team. He's going to play mid-50s in games by the end of the season. He's been MVP, again, another guy who's been probably close to MVP level, 25 points a game, pack rebounds, assists, defense, everything when he steps on the court. But did he play enough games? And enough, I guess, for all NBA for me, just because I think he's been that good. But it's hard to draw that line this year. It's really hard to draw that line this year.
Yeah, so your first team, Doncic, Curry, Leonard, Antetokounmpo, and Jokic. Let's go on to the second team. So who do you have for your starting 5 there?
Well, like I said, I mentioned Lillard before. Lillard and Doncic are almost interchangeable. That's like they've been so close to each other, and Lillard's been so clutch. So he's obviously there. Chris Paul is my other guard, who's been fantastic in Phoenix. Then you get to the guard forwards. LeBron James, as mentioned before, who's been phenomenal. Jimmy Butler, who's quietly had one of his best seasons ever. They have risen and fallen in Miami with when he's been able to play. He's been fantastic. And then Joel Embiid at center. So a team where that second team is filled with a few guys who missed some time, but were so good when they were on the floor that I couldn't leave them off.
One question I have, I noticed CP3, Devin Booker, did he come into your mind at all?
Yes.
Another guy?
Devin, the guard was the hardest spot. It's the deepest spot. It's one of the reasons I wanted to move Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler can be guard or forward. I have Jimmy Butler at forward to create another guard opening because you're leaving off Devin Booker. You're leaving right now. My list doesn't have, even on third team, Devin Booker, no Russell Westbrook, no Bradley Beal. Like Trae Young. I could go on down the list of guys. I have another 6, 7 guys in consideration for guard spots. That's what, honestly, that's what keeps me, and I'm not the only voter, and I say it keeps me up at night. It literally keeps me up at night. I go down rabbit holes with video sites and, Basketball Reference and Cleaning Glass and all these sites and start comparing players and racking them up and making notes, and then weird hour text to scouts I know, like, hey, what about, like, it just all sorts of strange stuff because I want to try to get it right, and I think I'm like a lot of voters. I really put posterity and also guys' finances are on the line here. Like their living is on the line in terms of, in some cases, how big a contract they can get next year. I don't really like having that. I don't try not to think about it. I don't like that. Think the media should have that on them, but the fact is it does. So I really want to try to put in the thought on it. And that said, it becomes really difficult. You can make the case for, especially this year, I think you can make the case for a lot of guys who are not going to make the cut.
Yeah, like one guy who comes to my mind, his first team All-NBA last year, Anthony Davis, he could have even been finals MVP. And then I know he missed a lot of time this year, but yeah, he's not on the first team. He's not on the second team. Where does Anthony Davis sit in your mind? I think he's at like 30-something games this year?
Yeah, he ended up missing. It's kind of the KD problem. He missed a few too many games at a very, very crowded position. There's so much depth that Embiid was so dominant at center, and it wasn't. You can make a very good case for Bam Adebayo at center, but I just couldn't. Embiid was so dominant at that position, I couldn't do it. Anthony Davis, missed a lot of time, but then you watch him against the Knicks the other night. You watch him earlier in the week. He's had a couple of games recently where you're like, that guy. That was the guy who was almost finals MVP and frankly probably the best defender in the postseason defender. Like he was just everywhere, blocking shots, closing guys out. that guy was back, and that guy was first team All NBA last year at center, and deservedly so. And he's probably not going to make the team this year. Just it's a weird year.
That's what I'm saying. COVID has really brought us some curveballs. So let's go to the third team. So you have James Harden leading that team?
Yeah, I do. I have James Harden and Kyrie Irving, the all Brooklyn backcourt. On that one, that again, all third team guard is by far the toughest spot. If there's going to be changes on my board, it is probably most likely there. But I'm also struggling forward. I think Paul George is one. Paul George has had a fantastic season for the Clippers, right there with Kawhi Leonard. The other forward spot is tough. I have Zion Williamson there right now because he is what he did the second half of this season, his emergence as a superstar.
Amazing.
But Julius Randle I might switch back to I wake up every day and I think I kind of draw a line through it and put the other guy in. Like, there's a lot to be said for what Julius Randle has done this year. So that one's really close. And then Rudy Gobert, to me, is kind of, with all due respect to how good Bam Adebayo has been, Rudy Gobert, the future third-time defensive player of the year. And by the way, critical to the Utah offense.
Yeah, absolutely. The high pick and pop with Mike Conley and Rudy Gobert is one of the most dangerous things.
You have to respect him as a role man. He has fantastic hands, and then it just opens everything up. And then, like that team just is loaded with shooters, right? They're just loaded with not just the Joe Ingles of the world, but I mean, everybody on that team can shoot, and it just becomes impossible to stop. So Gobert's really critical to what they do, and I think he deserves that knowledge or acknowledgement. Plus, I'm not sure that there's enough Utah guys on here. Donovan Mitchell isn't going to quite make the cut. I feel that way about Phoenix too. Like Chris Paul's on there, not Devin Booker. Devin Booker's in my long list of guards who I could seriously consider. He's absolutely deserving. But I think James Harden has, again, been at an MVP level when he's been on the court, and Kyrie Irving's been carrying that team for a chunk of the season when he hasn't kind of, he's had his own health and issues and tried to be right, but it's
still up in the 50s, high 50s in games played. And think about this too, James Harden, the first few games of the season, he's playing in Houston, before he transitioned to this MVP level caliber in Brooklyn.
That almost hurts him, doesn't it, a little bit? Like those he put up some numbers in Houston, but how he exited Houston, I know voters who said they will not put him on the ballot because of the ugly exit from Houston. And I kind of get that. He pretty much torpedoed a season down in Houston. So I get that.
Some other names that aren't on this list, Jason Tatum.
Probably my first forward off, man. Him and Randall, I could go, it's tough. That's one where, again, that's one that could shift back. Jason Tatum's been fantastic this season.
Yeah, another guy too, Tobias Harris. I know Ben Simmons was All-NBA last year, and we talked about him as a potential defensive player of the year. But Tobias Harris, he's averaging a hair under 20 points a game, and he could be one of 10 players, I think, in NBA history, the NBA and WNBA history, to have a 90% free throw shooter percentage, 50% from the floor, and 40% from three-pointers. He already has the floor and the three-pointer. He's just, I think, 0.7% away from getting that 90% at the free throw line. And to do that on the number one seeded team is pretty amazing.
All right, Corey, you're going to put him in. Who are you taking off?
Exactly. That is the biggest question. And it's like, I think he deserves to be on that third team. But yeah, who do I take off? I don't know. James Harden has been playing unbelievable. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
I see you're doing. I know why you stay up all night now. Yeah,
he can be a guard or forward, but it's just tough to leave any of these other players off. You're just splitting hairs, and it's tough. It is really tough.
Well, that does it for our All-NBA list. A lot of names there. I know you're going to make some adjustments for this weekend, so I can't wait. I hope you get some sleep. I can't wait to see the final list, Kurt.
Yeah, I'll sleep next week. Although then we got the play-in, so no, I'm not.
You and all of the NBA are going to be sitting on the edge of our seats, right? For this list and then the play-in games. Can't wait.